So hi everyone again, and welcome to the My Major, My Career webinar session focused on our English program. My name is Haley Brown, and I'm a Student Services Coordinator on the Augusta campus and also coordinate career services for UMA. I'm very excited for tonight's session. You're going to be hearing from several of our English faculty about their career journeys, their roles at UMA, and then we'll also discuss successful English ones, which I can see that we have one here, so welcome Quinn. Um, and we're going to be sharing, where they've landed since graduating from UMA, areas that you can work in with an English degree, as well as some information about the Career Connections program. So we really have a jam-packed session for you tonight. So with that, to start us off, I'd like to turn it over to Professor Ellen Taylor, who is the program coordinator for the English program.
Thanks, Haley. Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my role as a coordinator and more about the program in general. But we thought it might be interesting to start with us going around and just talking a little bit about our own career paths and how we ended up at UMA or how we ended up as, in the field. So that might be a little more interesting for you all. So I guess I'll start since I have the proverbial talking stick here. And I would say that I would start by saying that I grew up in a family that valued education, so I was always going to go to college. Um, I was the kid, the youngest, or the six or seven. I was one always in a corner with a book. So it was no surprise that I wanted to go become an English major. I did go away to school, to a private school. I was happy to get out of New Hampshire as a teenager and actually went to college at Tulane on a scholarship. And there I majored in English and worked for the literary magazine and a student-run newspaper. And I graduated early and hung around the city, like many people, thinking I would just become a writer. I wrote for literary magazines. I continued to write some freelance stuff. And like many pledging wannabes, worked at a jazz club. So at that time, everybody had other jobs. That was sort of the known thing. So I did come back to New Hampshire about 6 months later and continued to do the same thing. I waited tables, I wrote, and I decided actually to go on to get my master's degree at a state school because it was the thing that was most affordable in my budget. So I got my MA at UNH, and lucky for me, that was a great program. So, but curiously, I went there thinking I would just develop my writing skills and that would launch me more into this professional job as a writer. But an interesting turn happened there, and that was taking a linguistics class. And the linguistics, that never came across my radar as an undergraduate, but learning about ideas about language acquisition and how we think in language completely blew my mind. So I just started thinking more and more about that kind of thing. And I got interested in language development. So I say this because this was an unexpected turn for me. And there was a flyer on a bulletin board with advertisements for teaching English overseas, and all you needed was a master's degree, which by then I was going to have in a few months. So I did apply for this. I did end up going to teach in Uruguay, the tip of South America, for a little over a year. And that was also a super informative, impactful year for me where I continued to write, but I also learned a lot about teaching and more about language and discovered that I really liked to teach. It was something that I wasn't never going to do because my mother was a teacher and my sister was a teacher and my grandmother was a teacher, and I was not going to do that. But I found that I liked it. So when I came back to New Hampshire, I actually worked in a TRIO program. That was also a good fit for me at the time. And I may have stayed there, in fact, except for a perk of working at UNH was you could take free graduate classes. So I continued to do that just because they were free. And I took a class with a literacy guru, Donald Graves. I mean, his specialty was childhood language development and writing. And he said to me, why aren't you going for your doctorate? You should do your doctorate. And if he hadn't said that to me, I would still be at UNH working for TRIO. But having him tell me that and giving me that confidence that I should continue on for the next level really changed my path once again. So I won't go into all of the details there, but I did go ahead and get my doctorate. And what I think when I think about my path, I'm always conscientious about the bright stars I see in my classrooms, and I always want to make sure that they know, like, you too can go on. You have this. I can see it. I can see it in you. I see your spark. I see your drive. And what we often do, what we can do at UMA is help our students take that turn because we know them so well. And I'll talk more about that when after other people have a chance to talk about their trajectory. But I would just say at any age, I did my doctoral work when I was in my 30s. I felt like such an old person then. And now I see people doing it when they're in their 40s or their 50s. So there's no age limit for those choices. And yeah, I think this idea of following your dreams is really important. So I'll just pass it on to maybe Lisa would like to go next.
Well, thank you. And I actually didn't know your whole story, so thank you for sharing it. My story is a little bit different because I didn't major in English. I actually never did. And I majored in history of Western thought. But I did think that I would go into publishing. And after college, I spent a year teaching in Beijing. And I decided that since I was not sure what I would do when I came back, I would apply to graduate school. And so I did apply, and I actually applied at the same time as a friend of mine. We applied to do very similar things, and she got sent into the French department, and I got sent to comparative literature. So the rest is history. I was planning to, I don't know, work in some publishing thing, but I just kept going because I loved it so much, and I loved the community. I loved the work. I loved, anyway, so that is my general story. And since I guess, as per Ellen, the speaker passed the torch, I will pass mine to Caleb.
Hi, everybody. I'm Caleb James. I teach in the writing, I teach writing courses in the English department. My story of my trajectory. I was born in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I'm just kidding. I was, but what happened, I went to a community college, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. In fact, that was even by happenstance. A friend stopped by and I had no plans that day. And he says, I'm going up to the community college. You want to come with me? I was like, yeah. And then I signed up for classes because it was a long wait. So I did that for a while. It took me several years to get a 2-year degree. And then I transferred to a 4-year university. And I was a biology major. I like biology, ecology, stuff like that. Environmental health, and one of my prerequisites was to take a professional writing course, so that I could write environmental impact reports for the courses I was going to take. But I ended up liking the writing part a little bit more, and after that professional writing course, I was invited to work in the writing center at the university I went to, and that is where it really solidified what I wanted to do with my life. When I started classes at the community college, I wanted to do English. I liked language. I like reading. I like stories. And I remember I didn't like that program. You know, it's just like basic literature courses. But I remember being upset after one class about an essay I had written. You know, I don't remember what it was about, interpreting something, but it was wrong. You know, my interpretation was wrong. It was like, well, that's not even, I like reading because of the things I can think about it. So I stopped English for a while. And then fast forward, I'm working in the writing center and I'm realizing that there are other things to write about other than literature. And I didn't realize that. And so that kind of hooked me. And probably the thing that really did it is in a way radical, like you get to help students pass their classes, so it's like controlled cheating. And I just thought it was radical, thought it was cool. And I also think of the scene in, what is it, with John Cusack. It was like, I don't want to buy anything that's been sold or processed. I don't want to sell anything that's been processed or bought. I don't want to process anything that's been sold or bought. Anyway, and so I really like that. I always connected with that. And so education is what I landed on, but the writing center is really what solidified my place in writing. And from there, it just kind of happened quickly after that. I went to graduate school using a graduate assistantship in the writing center to pay for that education. And then, that's it. That's the important parts. Oh, I guess I should call on Noel. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Noel Tagg. I'm a member of the writing faculty and also the faculty advisor for Spectre Moose, which I'll talk about later. I went to a very small rural school. It was a K through 12. There were 21 kids in my graduating class. And I was valedictorian, so I was a real smarty pants. I was always planning on going to college, and I always had dreams about what I would be when I would grow up, but I didn't really have a plan for how to get there because I was a kid, I didn't know everything. But anyway, I think I did major in English. And I went to UNH like Ellen, but for undergrad. Even though I'm from New York State, but I couldn't bear to stay in New York State, so I went to New Hampshire. I think I chose English because I really loved writing as a kid. I lived out in the country, and so honestly, writing stories and writing fake newspapers was a way to entertain myself. This was back when we had dial-up internet, no smartphones, and no cable, okay? So I wrote a lot as a form of entertainment. And I thought that English would be really fun. I also remember that I didn't like the idea of being in a big lecture class with like 150 other students. And although I was very good at taking tests, I hated studying for exams and memorizing things. And so to me, English seemed like a great major because I knew I'd be in small classes where I'd get to talk a lot, and I'd get to write instead of having to take exams. So I didn't really know what I would do with my English major. I mean, I wanted to be a writer, but like Ellen, I knew I'd have to do something else to survive. I thought maybe I would teach English abroad, or I would become a teacher, or I would work for a nonprofit. What ended up happening is that I graduated in May of 2008, and in September of 2008, the economy crashed hard. And so there really weren't many jobs. And I ended up temping in Washington, D.C. I moved there because that's where my boyfriend was. I ended up temping. I was a favorite of the temp agency because I could write a decent email and I could communicate well. And not to like toot the horns of English majors everywhere, but in a time when there was just massive unemployment, I was able to keep a temp job for almost 18 months. It was supposed to be a 3-month stint at the American Society of Hematology as an administrative assistant. But they really liked the way that I handled myself over email. So much of our communication was written communication. And they just they kept me on. And that's how I survived the recession. It wasn't my dream job. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I decided to apply for MFAs in creative writing. I really loved poetry. I wanted to study more poetry. And I knew that if I got into the right graduate program, I would actually earn a stipend in exchange for teaching. So I knew that I could potentially go to graduate school tuition free and get paid a very bare living wage. And that's what I did. I went to graduate school out at the University of Montana to study creative writing and poetry. And in exchange for not paying tuition and making very little money, a teeny tiny salary, I taught English 101. I was very young. I was maybe 24 years old when I taught my first college English 101 class, and it was terrifying. And I had students in that class who were older than me. The University of Montana at that time had a mix of non-traditional and traditional students, just like UMA. But there was something about it that really hooked me. I felt like it was really important. And I should add actually that when I was in an undergrad at UNH, I worked in the writing center. I started in my sophomore year. It was kind of like how Caleb wound up at community college. A friend of mine knew that the writing center was doing a new hire orientation, and she had registered for it. And I just tagged along. I was like, where are you headed to next? And she was like, I'm going to this orientation for new hires at the writing center. And they let me stay. And that's what I did as a job in undergrad. And I didn't think that I would teach writing someday, but I knew that I really enjoyed like sitting with my peers and talking about writing. And I knew that I was good at it. So anyway, I did start teaching writing in grad school. My MFA was 2 years long, and by the end of it, I was wondering what I should do next. And I had lots of ideas. I actually even thought I might go to wood boat building school. There's one here in Maine. So I was looking at boat building school in Maine. But I had professors who thought I was a really excellent writing teacher, and they strongly suggested that I apply to PhDs in composition and rhetoric, which would kind of bring me down the path of becoming a writing professor, maybe, if I was lucky. And so I did. I didn't really think I would get in anywhere, but I did. I got into the University of Pittsburgh, and they offered me, again, more money I could actually live on, in exchange for teaching. And so I spent the next 7 years of my life in Pittsburgh. I took 6 years to do my PhD because I also got married and had a family, like had kids during that time. It was kind of crazy, but it can be done. And then I applied for jobs, and I wound up at UMA through just very serendipitous luck. Even though a snowstorm tried to defeat me in Boston, I still got here for my interview. So I don't know, grad school just kind of like kept bringing me down this path towards teaching. And I'm really glad it did. And I'm really glad that this is where I wound up. Okay, so I will call on Rob then. I think you're the last of us present tonight.
I think so. Like Ellen, like Ellen, I had in my own assumption that I was going to go to college because all I did as a kid was read because I was a nerd. Unlike Ellen, I do not come from a family of college goers. Most of my siblings don't have college degrees. I grew up in Flint, Michigan, which was at the time, the GM town to beat the band. And all you had to do when you left high school is walk across the street into a factory and you were set for life. But that world was crashing when I started grad school. This was the early 80s. I went to the local branch campus of the University of Michigan because it's what I could afford. And I thought I was going to become a high school teacher, English teacher. But after my first Chaucer seminar, I was like, no, I got to do more of this. And I applied and got in to Michigan State, where I did both my master's and my doctorate. That was a long, long process. Other people have talked about grad school. I don't think my story is quite as interesting, other than I read lots of things that are spelled very strangely. And when I finished, I started applying for jobs and there was nothing. I found out too late. Working in medieval and Renaissance literature was not a good career move. It was a bad career move. So I floundered a bit finding work. I worked as a visiting professor for a year. I worked as an editor in Ann Arbor, Michigan for a year, and it was kind of a slushy job. And I finally ended up in Detroit, one of my favorite cities, working as the communications officer for the Episcopal Cathedral while I was singing in the cathedral choir of men and boys. So I had this life that had nothing to do with anything I prepared for. And I found out that doing PR is something that I am actually really, really good at. All the things that people have been talking about, press releases, writing emails, doing all the website content, being the liaison to all the cultural heavy hitters in our neighborhood, like the Detroit Institute of Arts, the Detroit Symphony. These were all things. I was kind of, in some ways, I was sort of the public face for the neighborhood of the cathedral. And I worked there for 3 years and had a ball. I was looking at the end of the 3 years thinking about, I was still applying for jobs here and there and being very, very selective. And I had my goal, either maybe an academic job or go into the library science program at Wayne State University, which was one of a big research university in Midtown Detroit where I worked, working with a PR firm. So I was setting up not interviews. I was setting up just sort of like, can I job, job tagging, can I sit here for a day and just see how this all works? And also exploring grant writing with some of the urban development and historic preservation organizations in the city. I did not come to here from there. I actually went overseas for 2 years and taught at the University of Guam. So I moved my entire life halfway around the world to a little tropical island. And then 2 years, I moved it all back to where I am now, here in Maine. I do miss the best Japanese food of my life. But, the compensation is the blueberries here are far better than anything you can get on Guam. So that's my story. And I think I turn it back to Haley, perhaps.
I think I might turn it back to Ellen. I think
Okay.
we might go to the next slide.
Okay,
That's
thanks.
okay.
Rob,
Yeah.
in addition to the blueberries, you forgot to mention what you gained by your fabulous peers.
I
So-
also gained, seriously, I mean, that is true. I have said this many times before, and I have said it not only to my peers, but to my colleagues who work in other institutions where they are not very happy. It's like, I work with the dream team, and I'm sorry you don't.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so here's this comments from the coordinator. So that's me, Ellen Taylor. One of my principal responsibilities as coordinator is not that super interesting, but I do schedule classes. And why that's interesting to students is because part of that is to assure that our majors and our minors have a variety of courses to choose from in both literature and writing, and now in different modalities. So for any English folks who are early in their career, they would have noticed that we have some courses that are offered biannually, like our literature, American literature, and British literature rotations, and other required courses like our literary theory class and our capstone senior seminar. And then other classes, upper level writing and literature classes are offered every 2 or even 3 years, but we try to mix it up so there's lots of interesting things to take all the time. And I have this on the slide to encourage you to look deeply at our website, because there is a lot in there, like layered in there. And if you explore the links, you'll see more about what we do and what you can do. And if there's something you're looking for that isn't there, you can contact me. And we want to know that because we're always revamping it, where every year we have a conversation about what to move, what to add, what to change up a bit. And our English majors and those interested in English are the best audience to give us feedback on that. So the other thing I wanted to mention to all of you today about the major and career opportunities is that you are lucky at UMA in the English program because we have such small classes. Some of them operate like little seminars, so everybody gets lots of personal attention. All of our full-time faculty also teach first-year courses. So from the very beginning, students get a lot of individualized attention, and that's not always the case in other universities. So we have the opportunity to really build relationships with students who are English majors or minors or just interested in reading and writing, what they can do with that. At UMA, all of our faculty, I think, are primarily interested in teaching as well as research, I should say. We're all active researchers, but we take teaching really seriously and we love what we do. So I think that that's something that's perhaps unusual about us, that we know the graduating English majors, we know their pets' names, we know their kids' names, like we know them really well because we've had them for many classes and we nurture them all along. So another thing we can do for you, as noted on the slide, is help students with cover letters, with resumes, with recommendations. I mean, I teach creative writing 1 and 2, and I often hear from students that, like me, they want to be writers. And will we work on a plan to make that happen, like how to take that idea to fruition? So depending on needs, like would you go to a place that has a low residency, meaning you just stay at home, whether with your parents or your own children, and work remotely and do something for a few months a year? Or maybe, like me, you wanted to get out of town and go away somewhere. So there's programs like Jobs for everybody, and we are here to help you make those choices. And again, I'd like to think that because it made a difference for me, and I think other people here, like Noel, it makes a difference when someone says, I see this in you, you can do this. That personal touch and maybe even a nudge can really help someone become successful. And we'll talk more about some of those examples as we go on in our presentation. So I'm going to pass it on to Elizabeth's understudy. Elizabeth Powers is our Writing Center person, and she couldn't be here tonight. So I think she tagged you, Caleb, to be her tonight.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay, so you know how I like writing centers, right? Sorry, I'm working from Elizabeth's notes here. So writing center work is, in my opinion, probably the most meaningful in my pedagogical development as a writing teacher, but I think that there are also important professionalization things happening for the students who work in the writing center as tutors. So the overall job is to tutor student writers one-on-one, in person, and online. But if you are a writing center tutor, then you'll be doing other meaningful things too, like developing resources related to writing and editing processes, and then also designing and implementing presentations and workshops on writing related topics. Sometimes those will for courses, and sometimes they're for more specialized groups. In addition to that initial training, there is continued mentorship with senior tutors who have worked in the Writing Center for a while, and also under the mentorship of Dr. Powers. Oh, so, and in addition to those things, some of the activities that you'll do as part of your professional development is shadowing other tutors and working in teams to conference on a student's writing with them until you feel comfortable enough working with writers on your own. In addition to those training activities, there are also regular staff meetings with more focused activities or an area to where you can share your concerns about the anomalies that have happened leading up to the meeting, working with writers. There are also opportunities to attend and present at regional writing center conferences. And UMA grants have funded past tutors' presentations at the annual Northeast Writing Centers Association conference. And then finally, there's a course, English 315 Communities of Writing, that is also taken by many Writing Center tutors. It's open to other students as well, but there's particular benefit to Writing Center tutors. It is a course that explores different approaches to writing as a social process and research into writing pedagogy. So it serves as a useful tie-in to tutoring work. Okay, I can go. Yep, thank you. All right, so this slide shows opportunities for growth. So there is a peer writing tutor alumni research project that surveys past Writing Center tutors, and their findings include trends regarding what skills from tutoring work have transferred into subsequent professional contexts. So that's the goal of the project. So examples of how Writing Center work can improve one's own writing. Participants in this survey have reported that it helps them to hone skills like precision, organization, synthesis, and argument. And it also helps them transform their own relationship to writing. They report whole new perspectives through reflective collaboration with other writers. As a Writing Center tutor, you get to witness revision in action, and it's not yours. So that is a pretty fascinating and unique learning experience for the developing writer. You can develop advanced listening and communication skills. So examples of that are rhetorical listening. So not just the act of listening, but to understand and to think about the complexities of the context that the communication is happening in. It helps with development of effective question asking and moves into conversation building, which is especially important for collaboration in workplaces. There are benefits such as networking skills, demonstrating empathy, and increasing learning from others. And with demonstrating empathy, I teach an editing course, and it's neat when most students don't have Writing Center background experience, but the students that do, there's an additional insight that they have, whereas editing can be you working with paper. Writing Center tutoring or editing, when you've been a Writing Center tutor, there's a clear realization that there is a person on the other side of that writing. And so that perspective for writers, I think, and for teachers and for communicators in general, that's just an important perspective to realize. And I think Writing Center work emphasizes that. People have also reported benefits aside from professional life, like noting that some writing center skills are handy for partner relationships and parenting toddlers. I don't have details on that note. I don't know how to go further with that one. All right, so these last 2 points for the opportunities for growth. As a writing center tutor, you get experience problem solving and other analytical challenges. So alumni report being adept, creative problem solvers after all the on-the-spot thinking about expectations, needs, and ways to meet context-specific goals. One tutor described their work as solving a multi-dimensional puzzle, and lots of tutors report that reading analytically involves reading for not what language says, but for what it does, which is another important realization for writers to make explicitly, that writing has a job to do. And then finally, writing center tutors engage in supportive culture of peer review. So what that helps with in professional life is increasing your openness to and solicitation of feedback in your own work, being able to accept that criticism and put it into action. That's what the work you do in the writing center is. And so there's important growth that happens there. So that is all for these slides. Quinn, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think you're the only former writing center tutor in this video. Do you have anything you would want to add from your perspective as a writing center tutor?
Yes, thank you, Caleb, and excuse me, I'm still got a bit of a cough. But yes, I am, my name's Quinn Vinyl. I'm an alumni of the UMA English program. I'm also currently an admissions counselor at UMA in the admissions office. So I'm somewhat new to that position. I graduated from the English program in May of 23. And yes, throughout my 4 years as an English major, I was employed as a peer writing tutor at the Writing Center. And I also got the opportunity to serve as the editor-in-chief of the Spectre Moose, our literary magazine. So I can confirm everything that Caleb in the slideshow has said. My experience at the Writing Center truly gave me all those skills and more. I use those skills every day, and not even in the realm of writing, just in my everyday life. So I'm extremely grateful for that opportunity. And yeah, it went beyond writing at times. The students who would come in were seeking help. They had so many other things going on in their lives, and you have an opportunity to make this one difficult obstacle for them that much easier. And it's always, really rewarding to see that light go on, and to see when they understand, and when they start to enjoy engaging with writing. So yeah, nothing but positive things to say about my experience, and I highly recommend to all the prospective English majors I speak with at high schools, and in my visits in my admissions position, I always speak very highly about the English program and everything we have to offer. So the Writing Center, Spectre Moose, the Plunkett Poetry Festival, I think these are things that boost resumes for English majors. They certainly did. All those got me a couple interviews. So thank you all.
Good. Thank you, Quinn.
And I'm up. So I'll just say quickly before I talk about Spectre Moose that I think my writing center experience as an undergrad was probably like the single most important and influential thing that happened to me in those 4 years. For all of the reasons that Caleb is describing. And I didn't think like, oh, I have to teach writing. I have to become a teacher of writing because of this writing center experience. But as a student, I was empowered. Like, I realized that I could offer my peers something, especially in the arena of writing, which is such a vulnerable and difficult thing to do. And that was really cool to feel as a student. So I'm so glad at UMA that we also have a strong writing center and can offer that opportunity to students. And I'm also really glad as an instructor that we have the writing center as a place for students to go to get writing help. And faculty and staff too also use it. But now I'll talk about Spectre Moose. So Spectre Moose is UMA's student-run literary and art magazine. Quinn was actually part of the founding leadership in, what was that, fall 22, because you graduated in May 23. We decided that we needed a literary and art magazine at UMA. I had been on one as an undergrad myself, and I had used a lot of my experience working with the student press at UNH on my resume. And so I thought it would be great to have something like this at UMA, not just to showcase creative work at UMA, but also to give students the opportunity to build skills for their resumes. And so Spectre Moose is not strictly an English major or an English program thing, but it is a really attractive thing for people interested in the English program, obviously. And then it also connects you to other students around UMA. It is run by UMA students. So I'm the faculty advisor, which means that I did quite a lot in the beginning alongside Quinn and some other students to get it up and running. I do less and less each semester as we become more established, but I kind of just help students out with the timeline. I do the budget work, make sure we get the money to make sure that printing happens. But the students really do most of the work in terms of opening the call for submissions, setting submission guidelines, receiving submissions, looking through them. That's what we're doing right now. We have about, I think something like 125 art and creative writing submissions that the students will be voting on, reading, looking at, and voting on over the next couple weeks. So they decide, not me, and not other faculty, but the students themselves who are on the staff decide what they want to put in the magazine. We publish visual art in all forms, in poetry, prose, and creative nonfiction. The students who are on staff have access to a range of experiences. So they can have practice in publication and graphic design. We have a handful of students who have Adobe InDesign licenses, which Spectre Moose has bought for them so that they can practice using InDesign, which is this really complicated software, but a really great software to be able to put on your resume. And they're using that to design the magazine. Students also get practice in professional communication because we have to have a very professional website and a very clear website. And also some of the students, the editor-in-chief and the art editor, who together are kind of running the show, they are responsible for responding to student authors and artists and politely saying no to some work in a way that encourages students to submit again, and also accepting other work, following up on bios, all sorts of things. So there's a lot of professional communication that goes on. And then we also have students who focus on the web design itself. Our website was designed by a few students together. And so they also have had to learn about web navigation and copy editing and things like that. And this is an ongoing process, and I see my role as faculty advisor as very much being about mentoring these students in their different capacities. And then also helping them later on when they're building their resumes, talking about the experience that they had, with Spectre Moose, and how that might translate on their resume. Like, what kinds of action verbs might you use to describe this experience? What do you want to be sure to mention? I have a copy right here of our second issue. Oh, there we go. It doesn't really work with the way my camera is. But we do a print issue, which is very cool. We do one issue a year. And then we also have all of our issues online on our website, and you can see the URL here. If you go to our website, you can learn more about our mission, see the PDF versions of our past issues. And if you are currently a student at UMA, you have both the opportunity to join the staff. You can just shoot me an email and I'll connect you with our current editor-in-chief and art editor. And you also have the opportunity to submit your work. Our submissions just closed for this issue, but they'll open up again next year. And so currently enrolled UMA students can be involved with Spectre Moose in a number of ways. Yeah, I think I've hit all the notes. And I do see at least one person in the audience who's currently involved with Spectre Moose, which is great. Quinn, is there anything that I'm missing, or anything I guess you want to add, since you were so involved in the beginning and now you're out doing other things? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I got the opportunity to be there at its founding. I got to serve as the editor-in-chief. I'm so grateful for the entire editorial team. It truly was a team effort. It could not have been done without each and every one of us. So it was just an amazing experience. It really is a resume booster. I think that's, in the end, it boils down to professional development. That's exactly what it was. I still get to say I was editor-in-chief for a time, and I had an article published because Ellen was generous enough to give me an interview about her poetry. So that type of professional development is something that not only boosts your resume but boosts your confidence. So again, thank you all.
Yeah, that's a great thing to add. I was wondering if you wanted to, I remembered you're actually the one that came up with the magazine title. We voted on some different options, but we were trying to find a title for the magazine that would sort of, I don't know, have roots in Maine and maybe connect to our mascot. And Quinn was the one who was like, what about Spectre Moose? So do you want to, you should have the honor of saying what is a Spectre Moose? It's a thing.
It is, yeah, thank you. I did not invent it. It is it's a Maine legend. And this is recorded in newspapers, but I forget the time period, but hunters and sportsmen and fishermen around the Lobster Lake region of Maine reported seeing a gigantic I'm trying to think the right word. No, it was almost it had a glow to it, this giant moose. It had an aura, and it clearly wasn't just a mammal. It was something beyond that, and some sportsmen shot at it and it couldn't be hit or hurt or killed, and so it is a legend. And when we were coming up with ideas, I looked up I think what an albino moose is called, what a unique moose would be called, and I stumbled upon the story of the Spectre Moose. So I'm hoping UMA will fund a trip to the Lobster Lake region so I can search for it one day. But until then, it's a great title and a great story, I think.
Yeah, it's perfect. Great. Thank you, Quinn. All right. That's all for me.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the writing courses in the English department. We are we have a writing concentration that is getting shaped more and more each semester. So I think that students will have, there are a lot of opportunities for students to take writing courses that will help them as they progress in their education. Some of our professional writing courses, one I teach is editing for professional context. That's basic copy editing and workplace editing processes. We also have professional writing, which is writing for the workplace. That class is open to, lots of students outside of English also take that. But we also have grant writing, writers at work, which is kind of an advanced professional writing, and field work to help professionalize students as they move from being a student into the workforce full time. And that will run for the first time in spring 2027. And the senior seminar, I don't teach that. Does anybody else want to offer any brief description to senior seminar, Rob?
Sure. I am teaching senior seminar now, and I gave it a recent revamp where the course is really about you at the culmination of your program. We can start talking about, okay, what are my next steps? So if you are thinking about we have this degree, I went through the writing concentration, what do I do with it? I ask in the course that you take something from somewhere in your career that you want to explore further, and you develop it into a full length, a publishable length work that you also deliver at our annual student undergrad conference. But what I really try to do in that course is bring in as many English majors as I possibly can who are doing whatever they may be doing with their careers, which may include many of the traditional things you've heard about, writers and editors and publishers but also librarians, people who have taught overseas, teachers, professors, anything that might be connected and I'm working hard to bring in more people who have taken really unusual gone into unusual careers that they hadn't really expected to. Someone who is a professional blogger who is now turning into a novelist. Someone who majored in English who is now the front spokesperson for the main AARP. Someone who has a degree, an MFA in writing, but is actually an art teacher. And what he really does is write about art and works as a professional artist. We say it on our website, what can you do with an English degree? You can do anything you want. The fact is, it's absolutely true. And when you're thinking about what you might want to do, I think 499 is really mostly designed to help you think not only about the very traditional things that English majors do, but all the entire world of other things that are not necessarily do not exactly correlate to what you did in your program, but encompass all of the skills that everyone here has talked about. So that's the culmination of the English of your English program, is that capstone course. And as I think as you have said, Ellen, partly what we do in that course is try to track you after you graduate, so that if you need our help, if you need letters of recommendation, if you need someone to look at a resume, that's what we're here for. Not only while you're here, but long after as well.
All right, so these courses are additional writing courses that are outside of what I would call professional writing. We could say these are rhetoric and writing studies courses, and all you might have a better category name for these. But some of these courses include how to write anything, digital writing and rhetoric, community of writers. That's the course that I mentioned earlier that pairs nicely with writing center work. Embodied writing, writing for change, writing place, and then topics in writing, literature, and rhetoric, and that is a special topics course, so the theme of it changes. Noel, do you want to say anything about writing for change or writing place?
Yeah, well, I would say about these courses in general, so we have courses that are focused in on very specific types of writing and writing skills, like professional writing, professional editing. But we also have courses that are thinking more broadly about language and communication and the way that we write in our everyday lives or within our communities in order, for instance, to enact change. So that's what Writing for Change focuses on. And in Writing for Change, we even read sci-fi and climate sci-fi particularly, which is fiction, right? But we're thinking about different genres of writing that are trying to get people thinking and get them to enact change. Whereas in digital writing and rhetoric, we might be looking at the ways that texts and language and communication functions online, functions through video, through podcasting. In writing place, we consider how we use language, specifically through like telling stories, to construct place or sense of place. So like, what stories do we tell about the places that we're from? Why are those stories important to us? Why are regional histories so important for creating a sense of belonging or for excluding other people? What does it mean to construct place? And so, yeah, our rhetoric and writing courses really go beyond workplace-based writing or specific technical kinds of writing into like larger theories and concepts. But I think one thing that we all like to do is to connect bigger theoretical thinking back to our own lives, our own experiences. And I'm especially interested, and I think Caleb and my fellow writing colleagues would agree, we're especially interested in like how these things connect back to our experiences within our communities. Since at the end of the day, we all live within communities and are all citizens of communities. And so we need to use writing and language to ideally better our communities. And so that's kind of what we come back around to a lot of the time. Is that good?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so in addition to all those courses, we also have creative writing courses, creative nonfiction and memoir, and then Lisa teaches graphic storytelling, I believe, and Ellen, you teach creative writing? Yeah. Okay. Do either of you want to say anything about those courses? They sound awesome.
Yeah, just briefly, in the creative writing class, we do fiction, short fiction, poetry, and some creative nonfiction, or sometimes drama. So we try to like play with the different genres and see how one genre informs another. Maybe not have those boundaries so much, but to see like what poetry does that can help fiction, what fiction, the narrative arc of fiction can help a poem, and so on. They're all workshop based, so they're extremely participatory, and I think we may have Quinn, again, is a veteran of these classes. He might want to comment on that. The memoir class is also a reading and writing class, so we read like 4 or 5 books and write 3 or 4 longer pieces. So it's a creative writing class, but I guess we could also call it a literature class. And Lisa will be talking later, and I'm sure she'd love to say something about graphic storytelling, or maybe she wants to say something about it now. It's a very cool class, and it always fills up.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, this is my slide, but I think we've kind of covered this. Pretty much, even though many people kind of wonder what are, you know, what is an English major good for? We pretty much understand that English major is good for everything. Okay, well, not engineering maybe, but it's good for most stuff, because you do, as you can see from between the extracurriculars and all of the classes that we offer, going through this, you become a great critical thinker, a skilled communicator, and adept at deploying your creative talents. And those things are really applicable to a vast array of positions. So next slide, please. So this is just a very small list of things that you can do with a degree in English. And perhaps they are some of the more obvious ones, but I, as you can hear from everybody's stories, I encourage you to just kind of like explore different things, and don't restrict your career inquiries based on your major, because you've got a huge toolbox as an English major of skills. And so many things to offer the world. And I am done with this slide. Thank you,
did
Haley.
throw this one in here. Yeah, no problem.
Well, I think
Professor-
yeah, I don't think, given the time, we might skip this over for now, but I think we can, Kay Retzlaff, who's has a really fascinating trajectory. She's been a journalist, she's been in marketing, she's done so many different kinds of communications and writing work in her career. So people who are interested, we can send that out to folks.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
No problem.
This is just a list of some famous English majors, and I pulled these off the web. They were easy to find, but the reason why I compiled these particular ones is because each one of these very famous people has a very different job, right? Sally Ride is an astronaut. John Legend is a musician. Stephen King is an author. John Paul Stevens is a Supreme Court justice. So I think the variety of these positions is indicative of the kind of the way that you should think of the world of careers as an English major. There's really not a lot to stop you out there. And I am done with this slide. So we now have a few alum slides. Regina Anderson, who is an English major and graduated, I think, in 2003. She went to graduate school and received an MA in Literary and Cultural Studies, so a very kind of English adjacent degree. But while she was there, she got really involved in the world of nonprofits and social justice. And for the past nearly 10 years, she's been the executive director of the Food Recovery Network, which is an amazing organization that helps, trains people to glean food from all different kinds of circumstances, from college cafeterias to restaurants, etc., and to redirect unused food to places where they do need it. We've been talking to Quinn already today, and I think he's spoken a bit about, but I don't know, Quinn, if you have anything else that you would like to add. Thank you. Just that, the
perhaps the best part of my experience at UMA was the classes taught by you all, or in Caleb's case, the Writing Center. But the creative writing courses that Ellen taught really inspired me to become a writer, essentially, and regardless of my official career, I always will be a writer. And same with your graphic novel course, Lisa. These were classes that defined my decision to become an English major and to stick with it, and then in terms of literary analysis, that those skills have just been tremendous to have in my back pocket as I go through life. So yeah, nothing but good things to say.
Thanks a lot, Quinn. We have a couple of others. People might be familiar with Joe Hayes. He graduated, I don't remember the year he graduated, but he did teach for a while, and he actually continues to work with students as a college success specialist with Jobs for Maine's graduates. So I think his office now is in Randall. So you may see him around. And Charlotte LaPierre is somebody also who is working at UMA. She's actually a fantastic administrator in our college office. And she is still a working writer. She earned an MFA in creative writing and continues to hone her craft. And I think that is our group of alumni.
Charlotte was also a writing tutor as well. I do remember that. So,
Okay.
Lots of good representation.
Yeah. Thank you, Haley. So just to reiterate what Ellen said earlier, we can do a lot to help you as you prepare for your post UMA launch into the world. We can look at your resumes and CVs. We can talk to you about your career goals. We can help you prepare for interviews. We can advise you about graduate school. We can write you letters of recommendation. And other things. So we encourage you to be in touch, both while you're still at UMA and thinking about what you might want to do, and then also after you leave. I've written letters of recommendation years after students leave. One thing I would say, though, is that if you do know that you might want a letter from us, do tell us before you leave so that we can, prepare materials on your behalf and have them ready for when you need letters. So that is some advice that I would give. But we love talking about these things, and we would love to help you figure out how you want to direct yourself after you graduate.
Okay.
And I think that might be the end of my slides.
Yes.
Yes.
I think because I started kind of up with this, and then what we'll do is we'll transition into quickly some of the things that the Career Connections program can help with. And I work very closely with the English program on a lot of these different things too, so I'm happy to partner. I just kind of wanted to go quickly over some of the top employers that tend to hire English graduates. Obviously, we've kind of touched on a lot of these already, but school districts such as secondary ed, but also obviously higher ed, nonprofits and grant writing, all that kind of stuff, advocacy work, insurance and technology, healthcare organizations, because they're looking for technical writers. They need people to be able to synthesize that difficult information and kind of break it down for, into layman's terms or lay people terms, marketing and communications, public relations, and then even IT, user experience design, and again, technical writing, working on those communication skills and explaining complex concepts to people. With that being said, I just wanted to touch a little bit on what the Career Connections program can offer you all. It kind of can be boiled down into two different areas. So effective career planning skills and then job search strategies. When it comes to the career planning, we offer individualized career counseling appointments. So helping you identify your skills and abilities, helping you figure out, what your English major can do for you, and defining some of those career goals, making those connections between majors and careers, and also connecting you with folks if you want to do informational interviews, which is a really neat tool to kind of get to know people in the field, and kind of test the waters to see if this is something that you might want to go into. We offer a couple of different career inventories. One is the World of Work inventory, which is the WOWI, and that takes into account career interests, your aptitudes, and your career values. And then we also have the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or the MBTI, which is a personality assessment that looks at how you take in and process information, where you get your energy, how you make decisions, and how do you prefer to live your life. So for example, are you more of a person who likes to have things decided you make that decision and you stick with it, or are you more of a person who likes to kind of take life as it comes and makes the best decision in the moment? So just some different things that we can look at. And job search strategies, like the English program, I can also help with resume and cover letter writing, interviewing skills. We actually have an online platform called Big Interview, and it has an interviewing curriculum as well as a mock interview aspect as well. So if you'd like some help with practicing for interviews, you can actually record yourself answering questions, and you can send out your answers to, let's say, the English faculty, myself, and we can rate your answers based on what they think of your answers. So it's pretty helpful. We can also help with internship searches, LinkedIn and your social media presence, preparing for job fairs, and again, also graduate school applications as well. So like I said, I like to think of myself as a partner with the English program. Together, I think we are really a strong team to be able to help you be successful when you graduate from UMA and beyond. And just lastly, these are some resources that I wanted to send along. The Career Connections website, UMA Career Link, which is our online job and internship posting board. It's a blue cube in your portal launchpad. ONET, which is the U.S. Department of Labor's occupational encyclopedia. They have a ton of information on that website. Forage, which is a new partnership that UMA has entered into because of our EAB Navigate contract. You might have, so Navigate is the system that we use to communicate with students. But Forage actually offers free online job simulations, which is pretty neat. And then I included this link. It's a what can I do with a major in English? And it's a PDF of, I think it's a PDF, basically of a handout that breaks it down by areas that you might be able to work with, the organizations, and disciplines that are looking to hire people in those areas, and then tips on being successful in whichever path you decide that you want to go into. So figured I'd include that. So I think that's it for that. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Lasting remarks, anything? I think we covered a lot of ground tonight. Sure, Rob?
Yeah, I do actually. This is a little piece of advice. Haley comes into English 499. Thank you, Haley. But I would really, I'd like to encourage you, not that it's too late when you get to 499 to start thinking about this, but you might actually want to start thinking about these kinds of issues. Not that you have to make any plans, but start thinking about them your junior and your senior year when you're at that. It would not be a bad idea at all to drop into Haley Brown's office, introduce yourself, and say, I'm going to graduate. My time frame is to graduate at this point. What would be the tools to look at this point? What tools should I look at after that? So, I remember my own experience, graduating with my bachelor's and coming home and thinking, now what do I do? And and part of the problem is, as I said earlier, I don't come from a family with college culture. I had no idea how to do college. I have no idea how I got my degrees. It's a big mystery. But UMA is extremely good about having lots of support, not just us, the faculty, but also in the advising. So I would encourage you, make use of it as early on as you can.
Great.
So my question is, one, I'm at the Bangor campus, so that it's kind of an abandoned campus a little bit. There's not a lot of people in it. And my advisor is Elizabeth Daly, and she's in Saco, I believe. So she's kind of far. And I'm interested in looking at like internships and stuff like that for the summer. Are you located in Augusta or Bangor?
I'm in Augusta, so I'm definitely available via Zoom and things like that. We also actually have an internship coordinator. Her name is Jennifer Gomez. She's based in Lewiston, but she can definitely meet to go meet on Zoom and things like that too. Her primary role is to seek out employers who are looking to offer internships as well as connect students to those potential internships. So if you have an idea of what you'd like to study or what kind of internship you'd like to have, I can send you her contact information in the chat.
Okay, that would be awesome.
Grace, if I could chime in too. I don't know if you've had any classes with Kay Retzloff yet?
Yes, right now I do, yes.
Okay, well, she's in Bangor, as you know, and she's really plugged into the community, and she's often bringing up this idea that we should have more internships, and she's always listing off all these possibilities. So I would definitely speak to her, tell her you're interested in such a thing, and she may have some great ideas for you.
Okay, thank
There
you.
are also internships you can do remotely too, so like don't rule that out.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll be thinking about that.
Okay.
And Professor Jeff Sichters is also on the Bangor campus, and I know that he's really involved in the community and looking to help students connect with the community as well. So he would also be a good contact.
I would just add as an aside that there is also a writing center on the Bangor campus, and Grace is one of its tutors. I'm just saying.
And I'm also going to be the editor of the Ripple magazine. So, yeah.
Haley, you're muted if you're chatting.
It's been that kind of week, folks. Hearing none, thank you all for coming out tonight. And this has been a great session. I've learned a ton from you all, so I'm very excited to share it with students that I'm working with. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And I will be sending out an evaluation form at the end of the session to make sure that please tell us how we did and how we might be able to improve for next time. So thanks again. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you, everyone.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.